Well, just send me the bill, Foxy lady.
Better yet, why don't you come by and pay up in person?
I'll catch you on the flip side, darling. I'm too pooped to pop.
Do you remember a time when movies didn't bother explaining much? A time when they simply floored the gas pedal and trusted the audience to be bold enough to keep up? In 1977, Smokey and the Bandit burst into theatres like a storm and became an adventure that all of America couldn't stop talking about. Crafted by legendary stuntman Hal Needham, this high-speed outlaw comedy brought together a golden cast: Burt Reynolds as the charming rogue bandit, Sally Field as the runaway Carrie, and of course, Jackie Gleason as the loudest lawman in screen history, Sheriff Buford T. Justice. The film makes you laugh with its wild chases, moves you with the camaraderie of truck drivers, and instantly makes you want to jump into a car and take the freest road trip of your life. Today, we're counting down 20 dramatic truths behind Smokey and the Bandit 1977. 20. The addiction behind Bandit's smile, the price of recklessness.
Smokey.
Smokey.
Close your eyes and go back to the summer of 1977. What do you see? A drifter stepping out of a sleek black Pontiac Trans Am, rugged in a half-unbuttoned red shirt and a Stetson hat shading his charismatic gaze. That's Burt Reynolds at the peak of his power and appeal. But there's a truth those glowing 35mm frames never managed to capture. Burt Reynolds was an ego monster on set. He wanted control over everything, even the most dangerous action sequences. Instead of using stunt doubles for crash scenes, Burt threw himself into the action. The result, severe back injuries that turned his life into a long-running tragedy. Later, Burt himself admitted he fell into a heavy addiction to painkillers after multiple surgeries. His personal life after the film wasn't much different from a prolonged car crash, turbulent marriages, and allegations of control and abuse. In stark contrast stood Sally Field, a woman with no scandals yet carrying deep psychological wounds. In her memoir, In Pieces, she revealed that behind the bright frames was a soul slowly withering under suffocating manipulation from her partner. Perhaps the price of becoming America's masculine icon was far higher than anyone could imagine. 19. The unscripted kiss, when real emotion became manipulation. If you felt the chemistry between Bandit and Carrie was so real, it made you want to fall in love instantly, it's because it was real. Burt and Sally fell for each other on the sunlit roads of Georgia. The teasing lines, the instinctive touches, they were improvised moments that no script could ever fully capture. But that authenticity came at a cost. On screen, you see a love-struck bandit, but behind the camera, it was a chilling form of emotional manipulation. Burt, overshadowing everything as a superstar, turned love into a tool to control his partner. According to the tearful pages of In Pieces, Sally revealed that Burt didn't want her attending major events, even the Emmy Awards, where she was being honoured, because he felt threatened by her success. He controlled how she dressed, who she met, and even taught her how she should thank him for putting her in the film. Whenever Sally began to shine through her own talent, Burt would pull her back with cold silence or subtle criticism, forcing her into the role of a small girlfriend. We admire the loving glances they share inside the Trans Am, but in reality, it was the quiet endurance of a woman having her confidence stripped away at the very height of her career. 18. The worst script of my life and a debt, written in broken bones.
I couldn't tell you what the story is of Smokey and the Bandit if you put a gun to my head.
I gotta barbecue your ass!
Hey Hal, this is the worst piece of trash I've ever read in my life. That's what Burt Reynolds bluntly told director Hal Needham when he first held the script. And if you saw it yourself, you'd understand why he reacted that way. The original Smokey and the Bandit script wasn't even properly typed. Hal Needham, a stunt legend, had handwritten the entire thing on messy yellow pages. It didn't look like a $1 million screenplay. It looked more like a rough shopping list for a car chase, scattered ideas, no real plot, almost no dialogue. And yet Burt still signed on. The reason wasn't money, it was loyalty. Hal Needham wasn't just a director. He was a close friend who had risked his life for 20 years as Burt's stunt double breaking bones and taking hits so Burt could always look cool. Joining the film was Burt's way of repaying that blood debt. And ironically, that terrible script became the film's secret weapon. With no fixed dialogue, the actors were free to improvise, creating an energy unlike anything seen before. The result? This rough draft movie became the second highest grossing film of 1977, right behind the legendary Star Wars. 17. The Unleashed Cop and the character that was never in the script.
You punks look tuckered out too. That's an attention getter.
If other actors treated improvisation as seasoning, then the legendary Jackie Gleason turned it into the main course. When he took on the role of Sheriff Buford T. Justice, his first request to director Hal Needham was oddly specific. I don't want to be alone in the car. He needed someone to vent at someone to yell at non-stop for 2 hours on screen. And so the dim-witted Son Jr. was born a character that didn't even exist in the original draft. Director Needham later admitted that 80 to 90% of Buford's dialogue was improvised by Gleason on the spot while the cameras were rolling. Iconic insults like, "There's no way you could be my offspring," were never written on paper. They were pure, instinctive reactions from Gleason. Even the famous diner scene where Buford unknowingly sits right next to the very man he's chasing, Bandit, was one of his spontaneous inventions. The result? A lawman who doesn't feel written at all, but like a wild beast that's been let off the leash to tear through the entire film. 16. The Beauty War and the studio's spectacular mistake.
They can see right down into this car, you know that?
Well, so what? That's why I used to love to drive those trucks, darling. Spot those beavers.
Can you believe that Sally Field, the film's muse, almost lost the role of Carrie because Universal thought she wasn't sexy enough? At the time, studio executives saw her as just a cute TV girl, bland, and lacking the appeal needed to stand beside a masculine icon like Burt Reynolds. They wanted someone more provocative, a model who could leave male audiences breathless. But that's when Burt Reynolds stepped in like a shield. He pushed back hard, insisting that only Sally could bring the intelligence and depth the character needed. At the same time, Sally Field herself was determined to break free from her old image and prove her true talent. In the end, Burt's conviction won, and history proved the studio spectacularly wrong. Sally's charm, wit, and unique beauty didn't just light up the screen, it turned her into one of Hollywood's most sought-after actresses almost overnight. 15. The Budget Massacre, 48 hours before showtime. Imagine you're about to shoot a high-speed chase film packed with muscle cars and explosions, then suddenly the studio hits you with a brutal blow. Universal had initially approved a budget of $5.3 million, a modest sum to begin with. But just 48 hours before cameras were set to roll in Atlanta, they sent in a man whom director Hal Needham later called the executioner to slash $1 million from the budget instantly. The situation became dire. Burt Reynolds had already locked in a $1 million salary, leaving Hal Needham with only $3.3 million to make the entire film. Instead of backing down, the stuntman turned director and his assistant David Hamburger stayed awake for 30 straight hours, rewriting the entire shooting schedule cutting staff, and calculating every gallon of fuel. Ironically, this extreme tightening of the belt helped shape the film's raw, gritty, and grounded style. Sometimes, it's precisely the lack of resources that pushes filmmakers to create something truly extraordinary. 14. The real beer smuggling story and the empty refrigerator.
The problem is that Coors beer, you take that east of Texas, and that's bootlegging.
Do you think transporting 400 cases of Coors beer from Texas to Georgia was just a mindless excuse for filmmakers to stage car chases? Think again. In the 1970s, Coors beer was practically liquid gold under restriction in the United States. Because it was unpasteurized and contained no preservatives, Coors was only allowed to be sold in 11 western states to maintain its freshness. Anyone caught transporting it east of the Mississippi River without a license was considered a smuggler. Director Hal Needham got the idea after a trip to Georgia, where he discovered that hotel maids had secretly taken Coors beer from his refrigerator. Combined with a Time magazine article labelling it a luxury contraband, Hal knew he had found the perfect premise for an outlaw adventure. 13. When presidents became bandits too. What makes Smokey and the Bandit so fascinating is how it reflects a bizarre reality. Even the most powerful men in America couldn't resist Coors beer. Bandit's mission in the film was essentially something US presidents and politicians had quietly been doing for years. It's said that President Gerald Ford would regularly stash cases of Coors in his personal luggage when leaving Colorado. President Dwight D. Eisenhower reportedly had the beer transported aboard Air Force One. Even Secretary of State Henry Kissinger was once spotted bringing it back from California like a true smuggler. And actor Paul Newman famously declared it the best American beer, unmatched by any other. So when you watch Bandit flooring the gas to protect those crates, remember, he's embodying the same desire shared by the very men who once occupied the White House. 12. The death-defying rocket-powered jump.
Why don't you just drop me off here? I'll catch a cab.
Too late now.
Forget today's polished CGI. In Hal Needham's world, if you wanted a car to fly over a bridge, you made it actually fly. The iconic jump of the Trans Am over the Mulberry Bridge was no model trick or camera illusion. Stuntman Alan Gibbs truly launched the car across an astonishing distance, nearly 21 meters through the air. To make that happen, the vehicle wasn't just equipped with a 700 horsepower NASCAR engine, it was also fitted with a rocket booster, the same type used by Daredevil legend Evel Knievel for his canyon jumps. The roar, the power. It was all real. And so was the cost. The Trans Am was completely destroyed upon landing, never able to run again. One glorious moment in exchange for a wrecked machine that was the raw, uncompromising spirit of 1970s filmmaking. 11. Bandit's most unexpected fan, Alfred Hitchcock. Today is Wednesday, and my father is about to watch that movie again. That's how Patricia Hitchcock described her father, the legendary director behind Psycho and Vertigo. Can you believe it? Alfred Hitchcock, the master of suspense and fear, was utterly obsessed with Smokey and the Bandit. From 1977 until his final days in April 1980, Hitchcock maintained a peculiar ritual watching the film in his office every Wednesday. Some even believe it was the last movie he ever screened before his death. And he wasn't alone. Greats like David Lean and Orson Welles were also devoted fans. This stands as the ultimate proof a seemingly simple car chase comedy possessed a pure cinematic magic, powerful enough to captivate even the most elite minds in film history. 10. The name Buford T. Justice, when reality was even tougher than the movie.
I'm in a high-speed pursuit. Don't you hear good?
I hear perfectly. The fact that you are a sheriff is not germane to the situation.
The goddamn Germans got nothing to do with it.
Do you think the thunderous name Buford T. Justice was the invention of some brilliant screenwriter? The truth is far more interesting. According to Burt Reynolds, Buford, Justice was a real person made of flesh and blood. He was a highway patrol officer in Florida, and coincidentally, Burt Reynolds' father, who had served as a police chief in Jupiter, personally knew him. The man's loud, overbearing personality and swagger were essentially borrowed by Jackie Gleason and brought straight onto the screen. Even the iconic detail of Gleason constantly saying "some bitch" instead of "son of a bitch" came from this real-life officer, a habit Burt himself recounted to Gleason. The fusion of a real-world prototype and Gleason's natural improvisational genius created one of the most lovable antagonists in comedy history. 9. A hit song born from a death threat. If you change even a single note, I'll kill you. That wasn't a line from Sheriff Buford, but something director Hal Needham said to Jerry Reed. When Hal asked Jerry Reed to write a theme song for the film, he was just hoping for something decent. But only hours later, when Reed picked up his acoustic guitar and began playing the first notes of Eastbound and Down Hole, immediately stopped him. Reed froze, thinking the director hated it, and quickly offered to rewrite the song. But no, Hal had been completely blown away. The melody was so catchy, so full of freedom and spirit that his threat was actually an excited warning not to change a thing. The result? The song didn't just become the soul of the movie, it became one of the most successful country hits of Jerry Reed's career, echoing across American highways for decades. 8. The role swap and the almost B-movie star.
How much money did you say it was?
$80,000. $80,000.
Can you believe that Bandit wasn't originally meant to have Burt Reynolds' face? In its earliest conception, Smokey and the Bandit was just a low-budget B-movie project with a $1 million budget. And the man chosen to drive the Trans Am was country star Jerry Reed. Then fate intervened. Burt Reynolds, the biggest star of the moment, suddenly expressed interest. Universal immediately smelled money. The budget jumped to over $5 million, and naturally the lead role went to Burt. Jerry Reed wasn't pushed aside. He transitioned into the role of Snowman and created the film's iconic theme song. But fate has a strange sense of humour. 6 years later, when Burt declined to return for the third installment, Jerry Reed finally got to wear Bandit's hat. A long-delayed return to the role that was originally his. 7. The car that became a national icon. Some films promote cars. Others turn them into religion. Before 1977, the Pontiac Trans Am was just another sports car. But after soaring across the screen with Bandit, its sales exploded in spectacular fashion. From just over 68,000 units in 1977 sales, jumped to more than 93,000 the following year, and peaked at 117,000 in 1979. That sleek black car with the golden Firebird on the hood was no longer just transportation, it became a symbol of freedom. The president of Pontiac was so thrilled that he promised to gift Burt Reynolds a brand new Trans Am every single year as a thank you for saving the entire model line. 6. The CB radio craze, when America wanted to be truckers.
It's me they're after. They don't even know clear snow exists.
Oh, they don't. Well, I tell you what we're gonna do.
After watching the film, suddenly, everyone in America wanted a handle and to talk over CB radios. Smokey and the Bandit sparked a nationwide CB radio craze. People rushed out to buy radios just to speak in trucker slang, warning each other about Smokey's police lurking on the highways. CB culture was no longer confined to long-haul drivers. It became a kind of early social network of the 1970s. If you didn't have a long antenna on your car and didn't know how to say breaker breaker, you were officially out of touch. 5. When real cops chased fake cops. Filming high-speed chases on real highways is already difficult, but with a stuntman turned director like Hal Needham, things got even crazier. The crew chose to shoot on real roads at real speeds, and that led to some absurd situations. More than once, actual police officers on patrol were startled to see cars flying past at full speed with a police car from the film crew chasing them with sirens blaring. Thinking it was a real crime in progress, they jumped into the pursuit, ruining takes with the unexpected appearance of unscripted police. The production nearly got into serious trouble for causing public disturbance, but perhaps it was exactly that raw, uncontrollable chaos that gave the film its unrepeatable authenticity. 4. The $1 Million Star and the reality of survival filmmaking. In Hollywood, there's an unspoken rule: the star is everything. Burt Reynolds was living proof of that. He earned a clean $1 million salary, an enormous sum in 1977, more than the combined pay of the entire cast and crew. But when the budget was suddenly slashed right before filming, Burt's paycheck remained untouched. That left the rest of the production fighting for survival. They had to stretch every dollar, filming under pressure shortage and chaos. And strangely enough, that very scrappy low-budget atmosphere became the film's signature style. Sometimes, extreme imbalance on set creates an unexpected creative pressure that leads to something truly unique. 3. The inspiration behind the Dukes of Hazzard. If you're a fan of the legendary series The Dukes of Hazzard, you owe Smokey and the Bandit a sincere thank you. Right after Bandit's massive success in 1977, Warner Brothers approached creator Guy Waldron with one simple request: make something like that. The influence is unmistakable. You can see Bandit's fingerprints all over the Dukes of Hazzard, from Sally Field's iconic short denim shorts, evolving into Daisy Duke's signature look, to the CB radio culture, woven throughout the show. Even the floppy-eared Hound Fred was reborn as Flash. On top of that, 3 actors from Smokey and the Bandit later became key faces of Hazzard County. Without Bandit, those high-flying, dust-kicking Duke Boys chases might never have existed. 2. 12 years on the couch and a script by the pool. The bond between Hal Needham and Burt Reynolds wasn't just professional, it was brotherhood. They met in 1959 when Hal worked as Burt's stunt double. After a painful divorce in 1973, Burt invited Hal to stay in his guest house for a week or two. That week or two turned into 12 years. Hal lived in Burt's pool house for over a decade, and according to Burt, they never had a single argument. And here's the beautiful part. It was in that very guest house on messy yellow notepads that Hal wrote the script for Smokey and the Bandit. The film was born from long afternoons by the pool. 2 men who understood each other completely, building something unforgettable from nothing. 1. Buford's $1 million mistake. When Jackie Gleason was offered the role of Sheriff Buford T. Justice, the studio gave him a choice: take a fixed salary or take a percentage of the box office. At the time, no one believed a movie about truckers smuggling beer would become a hit. Gleason, being cautious, chose the safe option: cash up front. It turned out to be a decision that cost him millions. Smokey and the Bandit exploded into a massive success, earning many times its budget. Had Gleason chosen the percentage deal, he could have lived in luxury for the rest of his life without ever working again. A perfect reminder in Hollywood, the biggest risks sometimes bring the greatest rewards. You see, Smokey and the Bandit isn't just a movie about men driving trucks and smuggling beer. It's a symbol of a time when freedom meant everything and brotherhood needed no translation. And even after nearly 50 years, all it takes is the roar of a V8 engine and the sound of eastbound and down to make us want to hit the gas again, leaving everything behind, chasing the freest ride of our lives. Which fact impressed you the most today? Or do you have your own memories of that black Pontiac Trans Am and those golden days? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. And don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next deep dive.